The morning Henry Caldwell was sent away began with shouting, not in a courtroom, not in a place of justice, but in his own kitchen, the one he had built with his late wife 40 years ago. The smell of burned toast hung in the air as his son, Ethan, threw open the cabinets looking for pills, his voice sharp and impatient. "Dad, you didn't take your medication again. You left the gas on last night. The whole house could have gone up in flames." Henry stood by the table in his worn robe, a half-empty coffee cup trembling in his hand. "I was cooking eggs, Ethan. I turned it off. Maybe you forgot to look." Ethan slammed the cabinet door so hard the dishes rattled. "No, Dad, you forgot. You always forget. I can't keep running over here every time you do something crazy." The words hit harder than any sentence Henry had ever handed down in court. Crazy. He had spent a lifetime weighing truth and evidence, never speaking without reason, and now his own son used that word like a verdict. "I'm fine," Henry said quietly. "I've been fine since your mother passed. I just need—" "You need help," Ethan snapped, grabbing his father's coat from the chair. "And I'm done arguing about it. You're moving today." "Moving where?" Henry asked, though part of him already knew. He'd heard the whispers from Ethan's wife. A home, a place with professionals, the polite way of saying somewhere to hide the old man. Ethan's tone softened, but only a little. "Sunny Acres. It's nice, safe. They'll make sure you take your meds. I don't need strangers to tell me when to take a pill," Henry said, his voice breaking. "I raised you better than this, Ethan. I fought for this family." "You fought for your job," Ethan muttered, pulling the coat onto his father's shoulders like he was dressing a child. "Mom fought for this family." Henry froze. The insult landed like a slap. His eyes filled with heat, but he refused to let the tears fall. "You have no idea what sacrifices I made." "None." Ethan didn't answer. He just opened the door, rain blowing in through the doorway. "Get in the car, Dad. Please don't make a scene." Henry stepped outside into the cold drizzle, head held high but heart burning with humiliation. The neighbor's curtains twitched. Somewhere, a dog barked. Every step toward the car felt like another piece of his independence being stripped away. The ride to Sunny Acres was silent. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, tapping the steering wheel. Henry stared out the window at the town he had served for 4 decades, the courthouse dome barely visible through the rain. He had spent a lifetime defending the powerless, and now no one was defending him. When they arrived, a young attendant hurried over with a wheelchair. Henry's face flushed. "I can walk," he said. "Sir, it's policy." "I said I can walk." The boy stepped back awkwardly, and Henry began the slow walk toward the glass doors himself, every shuffle echoing against the tile floor inside. The receptionist smiled automatically. "Welcome to Sunny Acres, Judge Caldwell. We're honored to have you." Honored. The words stung with irony. Ethan handled the paperwork while Henry stood nearby, ignored like old furniture. When he tried to read a form, the receptionist gently took it from his hand. "Your son's already signed, sir. You just need to relax." He wanted to shout, "I know what I'm signing," but he didn't. His dignity was hanging by threads, and shouting would only make him look like the senile man they already believed he was. A nurse came to escort him down a long hallway that smelled faintly of bleach and roses. "This way, Judge," she said cheerfully. Henry looked back once. Ethan was still at the desk, talking with the administrator, gesturing toward his phone, impatient even now. "Ethan," Henry called softly. His son turned, forcing a smile. "I'll visit soon." But Henry saw it in his eyes, the relief of a man who had already decided he wouldn't. The door to his new room closed behind him with a heavy click. The walls were pale beige, the window sealed shut. A single framed photo of Margaret sat on the nightstand, her eyes bright and kind. Henry sat on the bed, staring at it. "You'd have stopped him," he whispered. "You'd have made him listen." He wanted to believe she could still hear him somewhere. The thought brought a faint comfort, but it didn't last. Through the wall, he heard someone crying, then a voice shouting for help, then silence. When dinner came, Henry barely touched his food. The staff smiled too wide, their kindness rehearsed. One of them spoke to him in a slow, loud voice, as if he were deaf. "You like mashed potatoes, Mr. Caldwell?" "It's Judge Caldwell," he said quietly, but she didn't seem to hear. Later, when the hallway lights dimmed, Henry sat by the window, staring at his reflection. He had sentenced men for neglect, for cruelty, for forgetting that others were human. Now his own son had done the same, and society applauded it as care. That night, a scream ripped through the building, short, sharp, and real. He stood, heart hammering. The sound came from somewhere down the hall. Footsteps rushed, a door slammed, and then nothing. The next morning, when he asked the nurse, she smiled too quickly. "Just one of the residents dreaming, Judge. Happens all the time." But Henry knew terror when he heard it. That wasn't a dream. At breakfast, an old woman with kind eyes leaned toward him and whispered, "Careful what you ask about around here. They don't like curious people." He blinked. "What do you mean?" She smiled and stirred her oatmeal. "You'll see." And just like that, she changed the subject, pretending to talk about the weather as a nurse walked by. As the days passed, Henry watched. He noticed locked doors, missing patients, nervous glances between staff. One morning, the chair near the window, where an old man had read the newspaper each day, was empty. When Henry asked, the nurse said, "Oh, Mr. Nolan passed peacefully last night." She said it too fast, eyes sliding away. Later, Henry overheard two orderlies whispering, "Another one gone. Keep your mouth shut," the other hissed. Heller said, "It's all filed." Dr. Heller. The name burned into Henry's thoughts. That evening, he met the man, a tall, neat doctor with a soothing voice. "Judge Caldwell," he said, smiling. "I understand you've been a bit unsettled." "I've been observant," Henry replied. "People vanish here. I want to see your records." Heller chuckled softly. "Transitions can be confusing. Sometimes memories. Don't patronize me," Henry snapped. "I spent 40 years separating truth from lies." Heller's smile faded just slightly. "We all have our limits, Judge. Let's not push yours." It wasn't said loudly, but Henry heard the warning clear as day. That night, he recorded his thoughts on a small device he kept hidden. "If this message is found," he whispered, "let it be known that something is wrong at Sunny Acres." He paused when he saw movement outside his window. Two men loading a gurney into a van marked Caldwell Health Logistics, his son's company. Henry's blood ran cold. The next morning, his friend from breakfast, the woman who had warned him, was gone. No explanation. Her room door was locked, the nameplate removed. Only faint screw marks remained on the wall. A thin brown streak trailed along the floor toward the staff hallway. "Judge Caldwell," Dr. Heller's voice came from behind him. "You shouldn't wander this part of the building." "What happened to the woman in that room?" Henry demanded. "There is no such room," Heller said softly, but Henry saw the freshly removed numbers on the wall. The doctor smiled coldly. "Perhaps we should adjust your medication." The nurse beside him stepped forward with a syringe. Henry's voice trembled but didn't break. "Touch me with that, and I swear before whatever God still listens, I'll drag every one of you into court." Heller's expression hardened. "You're not in court anymore, Judge." As the nurse hesitated, an alarm blared somewhere down the corridor. Lights flickered. Footsteps pounded. Heller turned to leave, giving an order to secure the wing. Henry moved to the window, heart racing. Outside, through the rain, the same black van waited. Two men lifted another gurney. Henry squinted and saw the clipboard in one man's hand, a paper with his own name printed at the top. The pen scratched across it. The man nodded. The van door closed. Henry stumbled back, breath catching. The world swam. He pressed a trembling hand to the glass, whispering, "Even fading memories can still remember justice." And somewhere in the building, behind a locked door, someone screamed again. Henry didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the black van and the paper with his name. He wasn't just a witness anymore. He was next, but fear couldn't silence him. It never had. He had stood against criminals, corrupt lawyers, even death threats in his prime. He may have been old and fading, but justice still lived somewhere inside him, steady and stubborn. As dawn broke, he folded the small recorder he'd hidden under his pillow into his robe pocket. He would find proof, real proof, before they could silence him. Breakfast was quiet that morning. The nurses avoided his table. He saw pity in their eyes, or maybe fear. The empty chairs of the departed residents surrounded him like ghosts. A kind young orderly named Maria slipped him an extra muffin and whispered, "Be careful, Judge. Not everyone here is who they say they are." "Then tell me who they are," Henry murmured. She hesitated, then looked around. "They keep files in the basement, behind the laundry room. Only Dr. Heller and the admin have keys, but the lock's old. Old things I can handle," Henry said with a faint smile. That night, when the lights dimmed and the halls went quiet, he made his move. His knees ached, and his breath came heavy, but his mind was sharp with purpose. He followed the faint hum of the laundry machines until he reached the door Maria had mentioned. It was locked, but years of courtroom patience had taught him that persistence was stronger than any key. He used a metal clip from his name badge, twisting it carefully. After 2 tense minutes, the latch clicked open. Inside, the basement smelled of mold and paper. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls. He moved slowly, flashlight trembling in his hand. One drawer caught his eye. DNR files. "Do not resuscitate." He opened it. Inside were forms, each with a resident's name and a forged signature. His chest tightened as he flipped through them. People he'd eaten breakfast with, talked to, laughed with, declared dead by their own supposed consent. Then he found one with his own name, signed in his son's handwriting. Henry froze. The air left his lungs. His son, Ethan. It couldn't be, but the signature was exact. The date recent. A sound behind him. Footsteps. "Looking for something, Judge?" Dr. Heller stepped out of the shadows, 2 men behind him. The doctor's calm smile was gone. "You should have stayed quiet. We could have kept you comfortable." Henry steadied himself on a cabinet. "You forge death orders. You steal from the dead. You think comfort will hide that?" Heller sighed. "No one listens to old men anymore. You'll be gone by morning, and no one will ask." The men moved closer. Henry's hand slipped into his pocket and pressed the recorder. A tiny red light blinked. "I already told someone," he said evenly. "A journalist. She knows everything." It wasn't true, but the way Heller's face tightened told him it landed. "You're lying." Henry smiled faintly. "Try me. Even fading memories can still remember justice." One of the men lunged, grabbing his arm. The recorder fell, skidding under a table. Henry struggled, but the years had weakened him. Then a voice shouted from the hallway, "Maria's, stop. Let him go." She held her phone up, camera recording. "I called the police. They're coming." The men froze. Heller cursed under his breath. "You don't know what you're doing, girl." "Oh, I do," she said. "I'm saving my grandfather's friend." The sound of sirens cut through the air, distant but real. Heller turned and bolted toward the stairs, but Henry reached for the table edge, pulling himself upright. "Not this time," he rasped, slamming the door shut. The old latch held just long enough for the officers to arrive. When the police burst by morning, Sunny Acres was swarming with reporters and detectives. The story spread fast. Elder care corruption scandal. Retired judge exposes nursing home crimes. The nation watched in shock as the truth unfolded. Residents declared dead while their funds were funneled into fake companies. Ethan arrived hours later, pale and shaking. He pushed through the crowd, eyes searching until he found his father sitting in a wheelchair outside, wrapped in a blanket. "Dad," his voice broke. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what Heller was doing." Henry looked up slowly. "But you signed my papers, Ethan." Ethan's face crumpled. "He said it was insurance authorization. I never read it. I thought I was helping." The judge studied him for a long time. For years he had measured guilt and innocence in others. But now, looking at his son, he saw not malice, only blindness. The same blindness society had toward its elders. He sighed. "You wanted to be free of me. Now you must live with knowing you almost were." Ethan knelt beside him, tears in his eyes. "Dad, I'm sorry. I was selfish. You were right. I forgot who taught me what right and wrong meant." Henry's voice softened. "Then remember it now." Days later, the scandal became a national story. Henry's recording and Maria's video became evidence in court. Dr. Heller was sentenced to life for fraud, abuse, and conspiracy. Henry's name was cleared, his reputation restored. The governor himself called to thank him for his courage. But Henry cared less for glory and more for what came after. He moved out of the nursing home, back into his old house. It was smaller now, quieter, but it was his. Ethan visited every weekend. He repaired the garden fence, cooked his father's favorite meals, and listened to stories he'd once ignored. Sometimes they sat in silence, just watching the sunset from the porch. One evening, Henry handed Ethan a small envelope. Inside was the recorder. "Keep it," he said. "Not for evidence, for memory." Ethan smiled through tears. "You really think anyone will care about an old man's voice?" Henry chuckled softly. "They will, when it tells the truth." A soft breeze rustled the leaves. Across the street, children played, laughing. Henry leaned back, the last light of the day warming his face. He closed his eyes and thought of Margaret, her laughter, her strength, her belief that people could change. Maybe she had been right all along. He had fought his last case, not in a courtroom, but in the quiet war for dignity that every elder deserved. And for once, justice had remembered him back. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan turned to him. "Dad, you were right. Even fading memories can still remember justice." Henry smiled faintly, the words lingering like a benediction. "And forgiveness, son. Don't forget forgiveness." The camera of life panned out in silence. The old judge and his son, sitting together on the porch, the sound of laughter echoing from nearby houses. The world finally at peace with an old man who never stopped believing in what was right. Respect and listen to the elderly before it's too late. Behind every wrinkle is wisdom. Behind every silence, a lifetime of stories. When society forgets its elders, it loses its conscience. But when it remembers them, it finds its humanity again.